validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa, I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we're talking about this, that, and everything in between. Oh man, I was supposed to check out that stream key and I haven't done it yet. That's okay. We're gonna get to it. I'll take a look at it after the show. Here on This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, we cover a wide variety of topics. And as it stands, we do not let the sun rise without going live, but we don't always start on time. So we ask you guys to like and subscribe, to mash those reaction buttons while you're here, to hit that notification button so that you are notified when we start live at the top of the hour. And then also, I request that you guys take the opportunity to go and look at the membership and see what we've got going on in the membership, because that could potentially aid you in your ability to be successful with other things. So speaking of membership, Stephen, I actually did do a deep dive for the information you asked me about for the China stock market, and that is in the membership right now. So if you are having the opportunity, you can go look at the membership and see all of the stuff that I put in there about the China. Not only did I put the information in there about the China stock market that you asked about, I also included several key stocks that you should pay attention to when you decide to start investing on the Chinese stock market. And I also gave you the ones that were exclusively utilized on the Stash app that you trade with, So that'll aid you with your ability to do your research. So, because me and Stephen was talking about this last week, he's one of the members of the membership, and we talk about a lot of things here. And we were talking about investing, and he was asking some questions about the Chinese stock market. And I was like, hey, I got you, bro. So we pulled all that stuff in. We cover different topics every night of the week. Sunday, questions and comments from the fans, questions about you that I can give you guys information about. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we talk about business and politics. On Monday, we talk about how politics negatively impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money. Tuesdays, we talk about ways to make, save, and invest money. Then Wednesdays, we talk about different countries around the world that we can invest in. Today being Thursday, today we're going to be talking about the idea of never paying your credit card bill versus passing capital through your credit card while maintaining a low or no balance. So that's going to be something we're going to be dealing with today. But Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we typically talk about self-improvement, self-development, relationship topics, socialization, negotiations, building your brand, raises, promotions, retirement, forced retirement, severance packages, termination, and then the importance of building your 20 and 30-year plan. Because the truth is that if you are not ready for what's coming next, you are not going to be the reactionary life that we live in our younger days is easier than the reactionary life that you would live in the older days. Special shout out to OG Kicks. The observation that if any event that your health gets out of control, your debt gets out of control, once it's out of control, you're in a situation that is effectively beyond your control, which puts you in a position of accepting the fallout, right? It's not even the consequences of your actions at this point. It's just accepting the fallout, right? So if you are micromanaging your life, if you are, I appreciate the likes, if you are micromanaging your life, if you are preventive maintenancing your life, if you notice your health is bad, you should be putting money into what is called a health savings account, which is a tax exempt or tax deferred scenario where you put money in there and make sure that you claim that situation because it might aid you a little bit more on your taxation, but it is money that can gain money on itself, not be taxed to you. And when you're spending it towards your health, it is not taxed. So pre-tax money going into your health savings account that you can utilize when you get older and need money for your health that's not going to be covered under your health insurance. That's preventative maintenance towards your life. We get a warranty for a car. We get warranties for the electronics that we buy, but we don't ever think to get a warranty for our life. We don't think we get a life insurance policy so that if we die, that the people around us can get paid. That doesn't do anything for us. That does for everybody else. But we very rarely think, oh man, I should start doing something now in my 20s, 30s, and 40s that when I'm 50, 60, 70, I don't have a hard way to go. That's the dynamic. And that's why we talk to you guys about building your 20 and 30-year plan. So we cover a plethora of topics. And today, like I said, we're going to be talking about credit cards and how to navigate through them. And when we get into this, because I did talk to you guys this time last year, about, so you can go back into the archives on YouTube and watch that show. But I talked to you guys this time last year about how to fix your credit score. And I talked to you guys this time last year about how paying down your debts would be important for your ability to improve your credit score so that you could qualify for buying houses. And then all of the laws started changes to make house purchasing a lot easier, because now all of the big businesses are having to sell their houses because they're now limited to like 305 to 350 houses in their inventory. So if they have 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever properties that they own, a big business, they have to put them up for sale because the law now prohibits that, which means that the rest of us that are looking for a house, whether we own one and we want another one, or if we are renting and we want to go ahead and own one for the first time in our lives, it makes more sense now to get your stuff straight so that you can be in a position to go ahead and cover the things that you need to get that house. Because one of the things, the first criteria you're going to have is stable income. So getting your money together is one of the first things that you got to do. The first thing that they evaluate when they're trying to get a house is going to be the quantity of debt that you have to pay versus the quantity of income that you have, right? You think it's all about credit cards. It's not. It's about the quantity of debt that you have versus the quantity of income that you have. That's everything, including student loans, right? But student loans don't weigh as heavy on your the qualifications for your mortgage, but student loan payment does, right? So the monthly reoccurring bills that you have to pay versus the income that you have, that's one of the first things that they look for. And your life is supposed to be inside of about 35 to 45% in order to get approved for a loan. That's the very first thing that you have to fix. So when we start talking to you guys on the show about budgeting and everything to that effect, and I'm like, man, you could live on 30% of your lifestyle, and people might think I'm insane because they're living at 96% of their life. Their income is like 96% for their lifestyle. And no, that's what the mortgage company is going to tell you. You know, they might push it to, when they include your property insurance and stuff like that, they might push it to 51%. But if you're making $4,000 a month, they're not going to have your mortgage be more than $2,000 a month. Plain and simple, right? They would prefer for it to be like $1,500 a month if you're making $4,000 a month. But if they're the reason why it's going up to $2,000 or $2,100, they might draw the line at $2,100 a month. But you're not going to have a mortgage that's 60% of your income unless you had the mortgage and your income has changed, right? So in addition to that, one of the other things that you look at when you're trying to buy a house is your payment history. Do you pay things on time? And it's not just do you pay things on time, because I talked to you guys about the worst thing in the world. We all have impulse shopping opportunities now because they're doing the short-term loans, the micro loans. I don't know if y'all recognize them, but they're here where, like, if you're trying to buy something, there's like Karma and all of these other places that's like, hey, you can pay $35 now and then 4 payments of $35 so that you can buy this item instead of paying for it all at once because you want whatever's in your cart, but you don't have enough money to pay for it today, but you might have 50 bucks. So they'll say, hey, give us close to 50 bucks today and then make that $50 a month payment for the next 4 months. And then you can get the item today and just finish paying for it later. A lot of people think that's fantastic, but guess what that does? Each time, one, it does a credit check because you're getting a loan. So you're going to have all these credit hits on your credit report, which lowers your credit score. Then you're going to have this account open. It's going to be a small, it's not a revolving payment. It's going to be, I can't remember the name of it on the top of my head right now, but it's going to be a small term loan kind of thing. Installment loan, right? So one installment account, right? Now, you would think that's good, but the problem is that the other thing that they're going to be looking for when you're trying to buy a house is going to be the account history. The account history is going to be the average between the oldest account and the newest account. So here's your problem. If you're buying things with the buy now, pay later system that they have online now, where at the touch of a button, you can charge it to your card, hand them 50 bucks, and then make $50 a month payments every month until you finish paying off the item. You now have a bunch of short-term accounts, 6 months, right? Your payment history should be, on average, 7 years. And the only time that you're averaging 7 years is with a 30-year mortgage and a 20-year student loan and then 7-year car financing thing. See what I'm saying? These are the things that makes your credit score look good. But, buying a pair of Jordans online and paying for them over time for 6 months to have the Jordans today, that 6-month installment loan reduces the average of your credit history, the average years of credit, which lowers your credit score. So all of these things negatively impact you before you even get to the credit card itself, the balance that it has versus the credit limit that it brings in. And that's going to be one of the reasons why when we start saying, oh, well, I'm going to go buy a house, and then we look at our credit score, it's like a 645, 650. but the lender says, I'm not going to give it to you anyway because of all of these other factors that you didn't even take into consideration. Where after Donald Trump changed the way FICO scores are being read last year, if we don't change the way we do things, we're not going to experience any benefit from the change that they made. That's the wild part. So instead of running from your credit card, because I know a lot of people say, well, charge off your credit cards, close them out, only have one or have none, just go cash only. That doesn't help because your credit score is going to be based off of revolving credit. So you need credit cards. You just need those credit cards to have a low balance. They're going to be based on installment loans. So you do need to have a loan out somewhere, preferably the house, because a mortgage would be good. That's an installment loan. If you have student loans, they just need to be paid on time. But if you don't have a house, a installment loan would be like a finance of a car, or personal loan. You can take out a small $5,000 personal loan and use it to consolidate everything else. Don't run up the stuff after you pay it down, but then make the monthly payments on that installment loan, and that installment loan improves your credit. So you have your revolving credit, your installment loan, your debt on your credit card versus the credit limits that you have need to be 30% or below, preferably under 10%. And then your total quantity of debt versus the income that you make. And on-time payments. Once you cover the spread on all of that, now you're like, oh man, we can go buy a house. It's easy now. Because the last factor, like I said, the last factor that's also the first factor is a consistent income. Now, you're not going to be able to get you $1 million house if you're making $2,000 a month. But your consistent income will put you into the market for probably like $150,000, $200,000 house. And then if you got any money down to put down or assets or something to that effect. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at today how to fix how you treat credit cards so that you're not wasting money on a rollover balance and you're still benefiting from the balance that's on the credit card. That's what we wanted to cover today. So I know that you guys might be feeling this. You got a credit card bill that you just can't pay. It's way more money than what you've got right now, right? It's sitting there on the counter, practically radiating anxiety. And you've had that thought, what if I just didn't pay it, right? What if I just let it ride? If you go to the bank, block their number, just pretended that the debt never existed. Man, I had somebody call me just the other day talking about something. Hey, we're here calling to collect for a medical bill from 2013. I said, what? 13 years ago. Then she said, oh, well, your car insurance had paid for some of it. And I said, oh, but what you're trying to tell me is that you've already been paid and you're trying to get paid again. She's like, no, there's an outstanding balance. No, there isn't. No, there's an outstanding balance. No, there isn't. And I explained to her, look, you said car insurance. I only go to the doctor when a lawyer is involved. The lawyer paid the hospital. So if the hospital wants more money, they got to take it up with the lawyer because I'm not giving them nothing. And oh, well, we'll take you to court. You got to be smart, guys. You guys got to know about these things. Look, most states around the United States have a limit to collection time. If you guys are going to charge stuff to the game, your credit is bad, you had a catastrophe in your financial lifestyle, and everything's maxed out and overdrawn, the smartest thing to do is not to pay it off. It is to close it down so that it stops charging you interest and then pay it off. You understand? And the reason why that is that as long as the account is active, it can continue to charge you interest on whatever balance that you have. You can have a $500 credit card with a $5,000 balance on it. And if you're giving them $100 a month, it is all interest. But if you have a $5,000 balance, it doesn't matter if it's interest or not, and you close down the account, it is not going to continue to charge you. So a lot of the times you have to take one for the team and say, look, close down this account and I will not do anything else with this account, but I'll make payments to you, right? Now, that account closed down. As long as you're making the payments, it's good. It's going to be a reasonable reflection on your credit score. Not a favorable one because it's closed down negative, but it is better than being open negative. Okay, believe it or not. Once you pay it down, then you can, if you want to, open up another credit card with a. Now you can probably open up a credit card with them if you paid it down with them because you no longer owe them money. But you can go to another card company and get you a card somewhere else because as there's 8,000 something financial institutions, there's just as many places that will issue you a credit card. So you don't have a limited selection of credit cards. You just have a limited selection of popular credit cards, right? We remember MasterCard, Visa, American Express, and Discover. Those are the four that we remember. But every bank issues a card that is affiliated with either Visa or MasterCard. So you can just get one from whatever bank that you bank with, right? You don't have to keep the one that you charged off. We choose to go back to the ones that we charged off because we don't know of any others, right? But if you paid them off, they're not going to tell you no. They only tell you no if there's an outstanding balance. Now, the other thing I want you guys to realize is if you have a charged off account, charged off means that they cancel the account. You didn't cancel the account. They cancel the account. Once it's charged off, the clock starts. And in most states around the country, there is 3-year, 4-year, 5-year collection time on a lot of different things. If they don't get their money after a certain number of years from the time that the debt went sour, they can't come get their money. It doesn't mean that they can't stop reporting it on the to the 3 major credit agencies. They can continue to report it for 7 years. Sometimes they can report it for up to 10 years if you don't manage your credit report and make those credit reports pull off anything that has expired off your credit report. But while they can still report it to your credit report, they can no longer continue to come after you for the thing. So like what we used to do is, oh, well, debt collectors, block the number. Debt collectors, don't answer the phone. Debt collectors, hang up in their face. No, legally, you want to get their mailing address. Send them a certified letter, cease and desist, because they can't collect it. You want to be able to tell them what city and state that you live in, the statute that determines that after a certain number of years, this debt is uncollectible. Do not contact me again. And any future contact will lead to civil action where now I'm going to sue you for trying to collect the debt from me because ultimately this debt collector is not the person that I originally owe. The debt collector bought the debt from the person that I originally owe, and the person that I originally owe settled the claim already. So the person that's calling me right now looking for money is not the person I owe money to. And at the end of the day, since that account has expired by law, you can't take legal action against me and come and collect the money. So that means that that debt is uncollectible. So stop calling me, right? And once you get that understanding, so now you got to be diligent when they tell you, well, we're calling to collect the debt. Well, I need the name of your company. I need the address where you would expect me to send payments. Don't tell them you're going to send a payment. Because if you ever admit or confirm that you're going to make payments, then that verbal confirmation reactivates the time limit for them to collect the debt. You just tell them, well, where would you want me to send the payments? I'm not paying over the phone. If a payment were to be mailed to you, what address would I use? Right? And they would give you an address. And then you send them a cease and desist letter. I need the name of the company. I need the address of the company. If any payments were to come via mail, and they're going to insist, oh, no, you can just give us money right now, buy a credit card, blah, blah, blah. I'm not paying you anything, but I need your address, right? And then once they give you that information, then you just mail in a cease and desist letter. And it's a simple draft. And I think, matter of fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I think I should have put it into the membership before, but if I didn't, I'm going to get a template for a cease and desist letter and put it into the membership now that we're talking about it, because that's actually very valuable for you guys to use. And it's going to, I'm going to leave it open for like a standard thing where you guys can just like take it as a template and then add your city or state code that identifies which laws that indicate in your city or state that they can't come and collect this debt. Uh, that way, it can be like recycled for you guys. But the thing about it is that that stops the debt collectors from calling, that stops the harassment, and that allows you guys to get a little bit of a peace of mind there. But the other thing that it does is that it keeps track of who's calling. So that when they tell you, oh, well, I'm calling from so and so, spell that for me. Right? So you every time a debt collector calls, you want to answer the phone, right? Because that puts a stop to it, right? But again, since they can't collect after a certain number of years, if you charged off your account, the 7 year window starts. So say you got bad credit, say you went through a bankruptcy, say everything went to shit, right? And now you're going to charge something off, and cool, it's charged off. Now from that day, that month, 7 years from now, well, 7 years and a few weeks from now, your credit's going to be better. So during this 7 year recovery phase, you are working on time payments. You are working on negotiating any outstanding debts that could reduce that 7 years, because any account that gets paid off no longer has a negative report for 7 years. But any account you insist that you're not going to pay, that's going to linger there for 7 years. And those are going to be the ones that's going to keep your account stagnant for 7 years, right? So during that 7 years, you're doing a restructuring phase. You want to pay down your credit cards. You want to have on-time payments. If your credit score looks good enough and you have a decent quantity of income coming in, then you might want to go and apply for certain credit cards in certain places. But you want to do your research, because you want to make sure that you research which banks partner with which credit cards, so that you can know if your account with the charged off account is linked to the other provider. Because if it is, like for example, Citibank actually provides credit cards for a plethora of different types of credit cards, right? So if you owe Citibank on one side, another credit card that you would apply for that doesn't say Citibank on the card, but it gets its financing and everything like that from Citibank, would deny you because you owe Citibank. So you want to look at whatever card that you're about to apply for, and do some minor research. Does this company affiliate with this company? And typically, because that's public knowledge, the internet will either tell you yes or no. If yes, if it's a partner company, if it's a subsidiary company, if they share data or whatever the case may be, and that's listed, you don't want to apply for that credit card. But if no, then you can apply for that one, and your owing a credit card is not going to impact you trying to get a credit card. So we just wanted to cover that real quick. But it does make a lot of sense that if the debt is so high, you don't have to run from it forever, but there are ways for you to manage the situation a little bit better, right? In the world of finance, debt doesn't just disappear. It grows, it evolves, and it can trigger very specific, predictable chains of events. Special question from Steven. Is the bank affiliated with City Chicken there, where I ran up a big chicken wing tab? I can only assume that's a joke. But here's the thing. If City Chicken is a business and you ran up a tab with the business could charge you to the 3 major credit bureaus if you have an account with them. If you don't have an account, it's just an unpaid bill. Now, if the City Chicken, like Firestone, offered you a line of credit where you ran up the bill from City Chicken, and say Bank of America provides that line of credit to City Chicken, under that circumstance, yes, Now, there is like an in-house financing kind of situation where the establishment provides you with lines of credit and the establishment charges you the interest and the establishment manages everything. And under those circumstances, no, the bank has nothing to do with it. It's between you and them. But when they get funding from the bank to take care of the other thing, I see your question. Uh, that's when that's when the bank actually pays attention to your account. So hold on, we got some guys over here on TikTok. We got thoughts on mortgaging air. Okay, so while that's a ridiculous question, nobody owns air at the time, at this time. So there is no point in mortgaging air. However, in the future, there is a possibility that somebody can find a way to package air and sell it on a regular basis, the way we've got oxygen tanks for people with health issues. In those situations, when you think about from a medical perspective, you would not be mortgaging the air, you would be leasing or financing the equipment that produces the air. And if that happens, depending on why you're doing it, it might be covered under an insurance. But if it is not covered under an insurance, then you would likely have to take a small cash loan out of the bank to buy the item cash up front or affiliate with a company that produces that air on a payment plan, the way we used to have layaway back in the day. The other gentleman says, how would I mortgage my in-house financing? How would you mortgage your in-house financing? Okay, so this is a very interesting question. If you provide financing to someone else, you are not mortgaging that. You can sell that debt to somebody else. If you have in-house financing with a company where the company is not getting the money from the bank on your behalf, the company is providing you with a line of credit with them that will allow you to pay them with interest for the item. In that scenario, if you want to finish paying them off, you can get a third party loan separate from your contract with this person and then pay them off, and then you owe the other person. So that would be not, that technically would be like a second mortgage if you already have a first mortgage. But if you don't have a mortgage, like let's say, for example, let's say that if this and that was selling houses, and let's say if this podcast did in-house financing, what in-house financing would mean is that, well, if you want the house from us, we would sell you the house. We would not talk to the bank. We would just sell you the house. You would give us a certain quantity of money down. We would open up a contract that says that you owe us X number of dollars with interest for this house. And we would put a lien on the house for the amount of money that you owe us. Now, you would just give us money until you paid off the loan. The contract that you would have with us would be different from the kind of contract you would have from the bank. We might be more lenient towards you missing payments. We would just charge you more interest. We might be more lenient before foreclosure than a bank. We might just charge you more interest, late payments and everything to that effect to collect even more money on the sale. In-house financing gives the seller the capabilities to continue to collect on the asset after the asset is sold instead of getting a one-time immediate payment from the bank. Now, if I no longer want to handle your account, I can sell your debt to somebody else, and now you got to pay them. But in order for me to get the money from you from this asset, I still have to be in a contract with you. So if I sell your debt to somebody else, then that person would have to assume the lien responsibilities for the title of your house, and you would have to start paying them. But that only happens when you are not paying me correctly. So say I put you on a $500,000 financing situation. You was paying me good at first, but then you kind of fell off. I don't want to keep dealing with this. It's been about 6 months. If you're making late payments, you stopped paying me 2 months ago. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I will charge off your account. And if I wanted to keep the house as an asset, I would foreclose on the house. But if I could care less about the asset, I would sell the debt to somebody else and let them come after you for the money because I don't want to deal with this anymore. So with in-house financing, it typically happens where the in-house financing is an alternative. And any company that is offering in-house financing is offering it to high risk borrowers, which also means that um, with a high risk borrower, you can charge a higher premium of interest uh, in most cases outside of whatever the maximum limits are for the city and state that you're in, where they can't get it from. So say like, for example, a bank might have put it down for like 8%, right? 6, 7, 8%, right? But in-house financing, high risk tenant, you don't have a lot of money down. I could charge you 14% in-house financing. You're not going to complain because you can't get the house no other way. I charge you 14%, but I still give you reasonable rates, right? So let's say that I charge you 14% on your $250,000 house, and you're still paying me the $1,100 a month that you would have been paying the bank. Well, the interest on the property is double just about what you would have been paying the bank. So the fact is that over time, you're going to owe me way more money than what you would have owed the bank in-house financing. But you're not going to think about that when you sign the contract at first. You're thinking, yes, I got the house even with bad credit, right? That's how in-house financing works. Okay, I want to make sure that everybody who has something to say said what they had to say. Now, Steven says, as much as I use them, I really am not a fan of credit cards. Well, nobody really likes credit cards with the rumors that go around with credit cards. Nobody really likes credit cards with the bad experiences that we've had with having credit cards become too much. Nobody really likes credit cards with us having the situation um, where that interest rate hits and after we made a payment the bill goes up even more. Like those things cause us an issue, and we do not see ourselves more often than not in a position where um we like credit cards, and we've been taught by everybody who knows anything about finance to avoid credit cards at all costs. Our parents used to teach us back in the day, don't put anything on your credit card that you don't have cash to pay for, which ultimately means that you're one transaction away from paying everything in cash. So in tonight's show, we're going to be walking through the typical timeline that gets set into motion the moment that you decide that you're going to ignore your bills. This isn't about scaring you guys. It's about replacing that anxiety with some facts. We're going to go from the very first late fee all the way to the potential lawsuits and having your paychecks garnished, because it can go in that direction in some situations. I've actually seen that happen. I was surprised when I heard about it. It usually happens with people that got an income, but we're gonna get when we get to that point, I'll be able to talk to you guys about probabilities there. But by the end of it, you guys are gonna know exactly what happens and why it happens, and why just hoping for the best in these particular situations probably is the most expensive decision that you guys can make. So it all starts with one missing payment. That's usually where it starts going downhill. Maybe it's a conscious choice because of a job loss or a medical emergency that makes paying that $800 bill impossible. It could be a situation where you needed to pay for something, and after you paid for it, now your bill is due and you don't have enough money to pay the bill off before the bill is due, right? Because that happens. Uh, let's say like your credit card bill is due on the 15th, but you just bought a spare tire because you had a flat. Now you don't have enough money before the 15th to pay your credit card. So you're going to pay your credit card next week when you get paid, but now it's late. Something as simple as that. There are situations where we lose track of time. We work so much, can't remember what day it is, and you just forget. Now you're in a situation where you're avoiding it. Whatever the reason, the due date passes and no payment was made. On day one, after the missed payment, nothing really happens. No alarms go off. But deep inside the bank's automated system, a little flag goes up. First consequence is already hit. You've likely lost your grace period. A grace period is that window where you can pay your balance in full without being charged the interest. Because from the day that you put the charge on the account until the day the bill, the account closes out, you don't have to pay interest on the amount of money. So if, say, your account starts on the 1st and ends on the 30th, all the charges you put onto it between the 2nd and the 29th are not going to have a penalty on them if you pay them all off before the 29th. So that on the 30th, when the bill cuts, there is a $0 balance or a $2 balance on it. Anything that's still there after the 30th could potentially have interest on it. Once that grace period is gone, interest can start piling up on your balance. So say you have an $800 debt, that's officially starting to grow. Within the first week, a gentle nudge begins. An email happens, a text message, a little app notification, a ton of unusual, friendly, like, hey, did you forget? Your payment is past due. Pay now to avoid late fees, right? Those little friendly messages. At this point, the bank system still sees you as a customer who might have just made a mistake. As you get into week 2 and 3, the messages get a bit more frequent. You might get some automated calls. The language is still professional, but friendliness is faded, replaced by a polite urgency. And this is also when the first real financial penalty usually hits your account, the first late fee. Under federal regulations, the first fee is often capped, perhaps somewhere around $30, but these rules can and do change. It's a financial slap on the wrist meant to get your attention. So here's what happens behind the scenes. Your account is now delinquent, right? And the rest of the world doesn't know about it yet. In most cases, the bank hasn't reported your missed payment to the big 3 credit bureaus yet. Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. This is the 30-day window that is a critical opportunity. This 30-day window is actually what you can benefit from if you take advantage of it, but the banks work on trying to solve the debt for you. It's the bank's attempt to sort this out with you before things get serious. So if you call the bank right now, while the payment is not where it's supposed to be at, you'd probably find that they're willing to work with you. They might even waive the late fee if you can make a payment right away. Their business is built on collecting interest from paying customers, not chasing down defaulters. It's way more profitable for them to keep you in good standings than it would be for them to charge off your account. But you decide to ignore it all. Emails go in the trash, the calls go to voicemail. As 30 days approach, it might feel like you've gotten away with not paying it, right? Yeah, you just walk to the edge of a financial cliff, and the bank's computer is about to give you a nice, firm push over the edge. The 30-day mark is a huge turning point. This is going to be when your private problem with the bank becomes a public blank mark on your financial record. Or not a blank mark, a black mark. It's going to be a stain on your public record. On or around the 30-day mark, the credit card company system will almost certainly generate a report and send it to the three major credit agencies. And that report now contains a new damaging fact. Your account is 30 days delinquent. This is going to be the first true domino to fall. And the impact is going to be immediate because your payment history is the single biggest factor in your credit score, as I explained to you guys already, making up about 35% of your FICO score. A single 30-day late payment can cannonball through that foundation. For someone with good credit or somewhere along the lines of like 780 or higher, a single 30-day delinquent charge can cause a sudden drop. And we're talking about a plausible range of like 60 to 110 points. You can go from a 780 to a 670 or a 570 in some situations instantaneously if you've got these things getting charged off and you're not doing anything about it, or not charged off, but missing payments and you're not doing anything about it. All the hard work of paying on time for years can be seriously damaged by just one reported missed payment. The higher your score was, the further it can fall. Now, why is this so dramatic? Because from a lender's point of view, a late payment is a huge red flag that signals instability. It tells every other bank, every auto lender, or mortgage provider that you're a high risker. You're not somebody that you can trust with paying back a debt, right? The one little note on your credit report, which will stay there for 7 years, acts as a warning sign next to your name. The communication from your bank also changes. The friendly reminders are done. You're now dealing with the early stage collection department. The calls become more persistent and the letters sound more serious. And they'll state clearly that your account is past due and that not paying could lead to more negative reporting. Steven says credit scores suck. I think I'm just here to complain about the credit system tonight. Well, on the upside, Steven, there's no way that we can pin this on Walmart. So Sterling won't be in here talking about how Walmart is holding us down. But let's say that you have a $2,000 balance, right? In the first month, you got the late fee. Now, second late fee is going to be added. For later payments, the federally allowed amount is often higher than the first one. All the while, interest is still compounding daily. So your debt is no longer just what you spent. It's a mix of principal, interest, and fees. And the interest is going to go on the fees. So you're going to have your payment, your late payment, interest, your second fee, and then interest on that. And then they're going to send you a bill and say, you got to pay at least X number of dollars. See what it says, if the Waltons paid more, I would have a perfect credit score. Well, he would say something like that, but that that doesn't correlate with one another. Because if the Waltons paid more and he put that extra money on the $1,200 of Ozempic that he needs, he still wouldn't be paying his credit cards on time. But he would at least have his Ozempic. Oh boy. Oh boy. Now, this 30-day mark is going to be a serious wound on your credit score. So while a credit score can recover, the record of that delinquency itself will stay on your record for a full 7 years, regardless of whether or not the account stays active or not. Because the credit score determines how often have you made on-time payments. So even under the circumstances that you fix the problem. Thank you very much. Oh, that's TQO from or TO T. I appreciate you from the other day. You just here yesterday, rolling it out. Um, so even if you fix the account, the fact that you missed a payment, it actually shows up and that's going to linger. And that's going to be actually a big issue that you're going to deal with because you're going to have certain situations where if you're trying to borrow money from somewhere and you've missed a payment within the last 2 years, it could negatively impact your approval because a lot of things are automated now. So an AI system would evaluate your uh, and a moderator would evaluate your credit score, your credit payments, and then determine if, hold on, hold on. Oh, oh yeah. Oh, it was like moderator authorizations. Oh, okay. Oh, because I was like, what's going on? Anyway, so what I was saying was, so the automated system monitors your credit report and says, okay, well, if they've missed a payment within the last 2 years, automatic denial. So you don't even get to the real person a lot of the times. Certain factors are going to be a red flag for the automated system, and the automatic system will bounce back a denial. So when you go to try to apply for something online, and it says it just takes a few minutes for the results, and in that few minutes, it bounces back either congratulations or I'm sorry. That's because the program is designed to reject certain accounts based on certain circumstances. It doesn't matter what everything else is. And even if a real person might override the system, the initial denial comes from the automated system. And if it's something like if you've had a bankruptcy recently or if you've missed a payment recently, it's going to charge you off. That's what it's going to do. It's going to say no to you because those certain criteria currently exist. Now, um, every time that you're going to apply for a credit card over the next 7 years, the lender is going to see that missed payment. They're going to see that you failed to meet the basic financial obligations, and it's going to be the first domino, and it's going to fall, which will set off a chain reaction. Now, once you cross a 60-day line of non-payments, things are going to get a little bit worse, a whole lot faster. The bank system sends another update to the credit bureaus. Your credit reports now get updated from 30 days late to 60 days late, where now you have a 30-day late missed payment and a 60-day late missed payment on your credit report, right? Your credit score, which already took a big hit, drops even more because a 60-day late mark is seen as a much more severe scenario because it shows the first missed payment wasn't just a one-time mistake, right? It looks like a pattern. This is often the point where credit card companies unleash a powerful tool like the penalty APR. Buried in the tiny print of your cardholder's agreement is a clause that lets the bank jack up your interest rates if you are 60 days late. Your normal rate might have been around 18%. The penalty APR is often much higher, sometimes jumping to 29.99% or more. Now, think about this. When the person on TikTok had just asked me about in-house financing. If this clause was in your contract when you in-house finance the house of somebody else and they missed the payment, right? You charge them the late fee, charge them the interest on the late fee, let them ride. Then let's say we're dealing with a government shutdown situation. They're a month behind. You charge them another late fee, right? You charge the interest on it, right? Then in November, they're 2 months behind. Now, instead of saying, oh, we're going to foreclose on you, you might say jackpot. Now I can jack it up from what it was to like 35 or 40% because you're 2 months behind. I'm going to charge another late fee, and I'm going to charge substantial interest on this month and next month until you catch up. What that does for a person that is making extra money off of the interest, it encourages them to keep your account lingering in the semi-negative scenario where they make more money off of the same sale. That's where in-house financiers benefit. If they're not afraid of losing the asset, but you're still willing to make good on the debt, and they continue to call you on the debt, and you continue to promise to pay on the debt, and you're giving them something but not all of it, they could just keep calling you like a loan shark. But your overall balance is substantially larger than your initial balance. Like, take, for example, a mortgage. Mortgages are usually front loaded with interest. You might have a $2,000 a month mortgage, and out of the $2,000 of mortgage a month, 1,800 of it is interest. You make 3 payments, you done gave them $6,000, but you really only put $600 towards the principal. If you miss a payment and they're starting to charge you 30 or 40% interest on your scenario, even if you're making minimum payments, guess what? It's all interest. That's not touching your principal, which ultimately benefits the lender. Your high risk status and failure to pay on time benefits the lender. Because if they're smart about how their operation works, they still have the lien on your property for the total balance, right? You must clear the total balance before you collect the house, before they collect on a house, right? If somebody forecloses on a house, you have to get paid in full, right? That's what people don't think about. So let's do some quick math. Let's say that your balance is growing. You got $2,100. At 18% APR, you're racking up about $31.50 in interest every month. Now, 29%, the penalty APR, you're looking at nearly $52.50 in interest a month, which is going to be another reason why your minimum monthly payment goes up from what it used to be to what it is now, because of all the extra notes, all of the extra fees and interest and payments and stuff. That is going to be the speed at which your debt grows, which just got supercharged because you missed yet another payment. And this isn't temporary. The issuer is required to review this penalty rate every 6 months, but they aren't always obligated to lower it. So once you cross into this threshold, it might stay that way for the duration of your account. Even after you correct it, the pain doesn't stop there. Any special offer that you had, like a 0% introductory rates, gone. The bank might also slash your credit limit or just freeze your card completely. And if you have any other accounts with that same bank, like a checking account, you could be at risk of them exercising their rights to offset the debt. The rules around that is this, and it's going to be very complicated, very, very complicated, but it's going to mean, plain and simple, that they could potentially take money from your account that you own and put the money directly onto another account that you own with them to cover the credit card debt that you owe them. And some places actually charge you a fee for performing that transaction. Real quick, y'all know overdraft protection. It has become a token name in banking. Overdraft, the word protection gives people peace of mind and security, but overdraft protection plans give the bank the legal authorization to move your money around on your behalf. Overdraft protection has a guaranteed $35 fee. When the charge declining does not, back in the day, they used to have the insufficient fund fee. The insufficient fund fee or NSF fee was when the check got cashed. The bank paid the check and then charged you the fee. That happens with your bank account when they attempt to take a transaction off your account and there's no money there. With the debit card, though, more often than not, if there isn't enough money to cover the balance, the debit card rejects the attempt altogether and you don't have an NSF fee. So if there's no insufficient fund fee on a declined debit card transaction, why elect for overdraft protection so that they can charge you $35 to move your money from your savings account to your checking account to cover the charge on your debit card? Because we like the word protection, not because it actually protects us, right? Because the former scenario where debit card says, no, there's not enough money in it, but the savings account has plenty of money in it, at the end of the day, because the savings account is not linked to the checking account, the money in the savings account is protected. There's your true protection. No overdraft protection, right? You either have it or you don't. And if you don't, you can't buy this item. Now, the collection calls are going to become more relentless at this point. You're now dealing with actual collection agencies whose job is to get that money. Sometimes they have the in-house collection department at the bank or credit company that you have your account with. And the whole system changes because now when you call, customer care is not what you're going to talk to. Now when you call, it's going to redirect you directly to collections because before they do anything with your account, they want you to make a payment. So they're only going to redirect you to collections, and collections is not going to be nice because all they care about is getting your money. And some of those people are horrendous, and they're going to call you multiple times a day, first thing in the morning, throughout the day, at night. There's another thing that they're going to do. If you have an emergency contact or an alternative phone number that you put onto your account, they're going to use that too to contact you. If you called them from a different number, they're going to use that number to call you back. So any information, if you slip up and give them another address, they will start mailing stuff to every address that they have on file for you, right? Call your employer, all kinds of stuff to collect the debt. They're going to send a steady stream of letters, and each one is going to be more demanding than the last. Michael says debit cards have limits, so you can't get charged, but you can always call the bank and have it raised. Okay, so that's two different things, Michael. Debit cards have a purchase limit, and the purchase limit is how much stuff you can buy in a single day with this debit card. And depending on the bank that you have and the account that you have, you can raise the limit from what it is to what you need it to be, especially if you are a high spender. That is true. However, because debit cards have limits does not mean that you cannot get charged the NSF fee. It is the account that you have with the bank that determines that debit cards do not charge NSF fees because of the account you have with the bank. And as a result, because there are banks that if you charge your debit card, if you don't have enough money in the account, you will be charged a $35 fee. But there are banks that strictly say in their clauses that there's no fee for declined charges. And since there's no fee for declined charges, then there is no need for overdraft protection. He said, that's true what you're saying. Hey, you do know what you're talking about, but it's a two-part process because the terms and conditions for the account that you have dictates whether or not an attempt on your account will be charged or not, a fee for the failed attempt. That's one thing. And then the other thing, because And we want to talk about the purchase limit is different from the withdrawal limit, because you also have a maximum quantity of money that can be withdrawn from an ATM machine. It might be $1,000 to withdraw from an ATM machine. You might have a purchase limit of like $3,000 to $5,000 on your debit card. You would call the bank. If, let's say that you had a $5,000 limit on your debit card for a purchase and you wanted to put $9,000 down on a car payment, you would have to call your bank and let them know that you're trying to make this transaction so that they can up the limit on your card at the time of that transaction, even if it's a one-time adjustment, right? But let's say that you just got your account was set at $2,500 spending limit. You wasn't spending that much money at the time. It didn't bother you. Now you got a promotion, you got a raise, you're making more money, and now you want to spend okay, block this guy. That is inappropriate. And oh, we don't want to show filter comments. We want to keep that inappropriateness off of the show. But what I was saying was, when you have the $2,500 limit, and now you're starting to spend more money, you want to raise your limits. Now you can call the bank and say, hey, now I want to spend $5,000 a month. They're going to raise your limits to whatever the max is, because it's not always guaranteed. You may have to change your account from the basic account to a more advanced account. If you're doing business on a regular basis, you might have to change it from a personal account to a business account. But as you make those changes, that would change how you can make those transactions. Michael says, if I have no money, I won't buy it. Well, okay, that is the logic of a person that's trying to be fiscally responsible. Right now, we're talking about the logic of if somebody, let's say you have a joint bank account, there's money in there, and your partner knows that there's money in there. One of you decides to make a transaction and not tell the other person. The balance is going to be presumed by the unknown person to have not changed. That person decides to make another transaction on the same amount of money, but that money is not there anymore. So let's say that we had like $500 that was supposed to be in the account. Let's say that my partner made a charge for 150 bucks. And now I want to make a charge for, say, 450 bucks. There was only $500 in the account. Once 150 bucks left, I don't have 450 bucks in the account. So the second attempt would be a charge off, not because I'm spending money that I know I don't have. It is because I didn't know that I didn't have enough. And in those situations, it's going to be equivalent to if you have auto pay set up to the same account that you're spending money on, which I completely discourage. But a lot of people have everything going through one account, which is a bad idea, but they do that. So what happens is that you forgot that automatic bill pay was set up for today. You're about to spend money, but they already took it out of your account. Whether you were about to put gas in the car or whatever the case may be. You might have checked your account this morning, thought you had money in there, and then this afternoon when you went to go put gas in the tank, the money's not there because the automatic bill pay took it out at lunchtime. Situations like that can happen. It's not like, oh, I'm trying to spend money I don't have. It's the fact that I didn't know I didn't have enough. And a lot of people that are not as financially savvy as they want to admit do that. So, or I would budget for it. Budgeting for it works. It does work. But budgeting has its limitations when everything is manual. And then you have automatic bill pay, you have automatic transfers. If you're sharing an account with somebody else that doesn't report back to you, the unknown and the forgotten finances is going to be situations that lead you to making a clerical error. And a clerical error is what leads you to having the decline charge. And whether or not it's going to charge you a fee is going to be the difference. There's no logic. in illogically thinking, great plan on staying poor. Well, I mean, the reason why we have a lot of people that are still poor after 20 years of being an adult, 30 years of being an adult, they're still poor because they're still making similar financially irresponsible decisions. Because even if you are a budgeter, long-term satisfaction budgeter, and you are with somebody that is a spender, short-term gratification spender, you put money there for a reason. They're taking money out because it's there. In that scenario, you think there's more in there than what really is in there. And when you go to tap into the amount you think is there, you are discovering at the register that it's not there. Online banking and other fintech makes it a lot easier for us to manage our budget because we can log into our account to see how much money is there before we make the transaction. But no matter how long of a line we're in at Walmart, nobody checks their balance before they use their card. They use the card, they get the decline, they use it again, they get the decline, then they check their bank to see what happened. But you were 3 people down the line. It's going to take them 5 minutes to get through these 2 people. And by the time you get to the line to start loading your thing, you could have checked to see if you have money on your account. You could have checked to see if you have money in your account while you was walking through the store before you got into the line. But most people don't do that, even though it's there. Hold on a second. We've got, see what this comment says. Do you have any work or shop? I'm not sure what you're asking me here. We've got a lot of I got a lot of work going on in my shop. uh, you said, how do I get into the line? A line of what? I don't understand. The line of fire? I don't know. What are you talking about here? The logic is, so we're talking about credit cards. So I'm not sure where you guys are at right now. We're talking about credit cards. We're talking about paying credit cards on time. We're talking about budgeting yourself correctly. How do I get into the line? Oh, you're referring to how do you get into the line at the grocery store? Well, you just show up behind the person that's in front of you and you just wait. Well, while you're waiting, you can be checking your balance. That way, you know if you got money before you start making transactions. Michael says, easy get rid of the spender. We men have our boundaries. It's not as easy as you think. I mean, yes, I completely agree with you, Michael. If we're dating a person that's spending more money than they're worth, or they're spending more money than they bring in, or they're spending more money than I bring in, it makes more sense for us to get rid of them. But the average man gets with the wrong person, stays with the wrong person, invests so much time, money, and effort into getting the wrong person. And even though the only benefit they might have from that person is that they might get the physical connection from that person, rarely at the end of the day, they still find themselves in a position where they would prefer to waste money on that person to keep that person there than to do the smart thing and get rid of that person because that person is a liability, not an asset. Okay, hold on, let's see what's going on here. He's got what? Where did you provide in attention for your sunglasses? Well, I don't understand that question either. These are prescription glasses, and my attention is going to be on both TikTok and YouTube and Twitch, since YouTube and Twitch is live over there, and you guys are live over here. So we're trying to get the stream key to put all you guys into the same place, but we haven't gotten it yet. But until we get it, we got you guys on 2 different sides of the thing. But I gotta renew these, I really do. But right now they're like 805, or they should have gone up $850 a piece, and I just have not gotten another set yet. So I don't do that. Uh, so how do I effectively budget using my credit card with proper consistency? That is a fantastic question. One of the things we were actually going to be getting into later today, and then I'm going to get to Michael and Steven's questions. One of the things we was going to get into later today, the most effective way to roll over a budget with a credit card that doesn't already have a balance you can't pay is to put on that credit card, like mom and daddy used to always say, the amount of money that you have the capabilities of paying off. I would recommend revolving bills. And the reason why I would recommend revolving bills is because they're fixed amounts, like your light bill, your phone bill, your car insurance, your gas bill, cable bill, stuff to that effect. Things that have a fixed amount due month to month. Not your car note, not your mortgage, not outstanding massive finance bills where if you put money on it, you still owe them the same amount of money next month. I'm talking about like regular revolving bills. And by doing so, if you put the money on the credit card, the bill is paid. Then you can take the cash and put it on the credit card. I would say 5 to 7 days before the end of the billing cycle, where you leave like $2 on the card so that it shows a payment history. And that allows for you to keep your cards in good standings. Now, to prevent from making a mistake on this situation is you want to know when your billing cycle rolls over. So let's say that your billing cycle starts on the 1st. If you put stuff on your card between the 1st and let's say the 20th, by the 22nd or 23rd, you want to pay off everything that you put on the card minus $2. At the end of the billing cycle on the 30th, there's $2 on the card. On the 1st, the first thing you want to do is pay that $2 off. Why? Because even though you paid down the debt from the beginning of the billing cycle to the end of the billing cycle, whatever's left over, you have 2 weeks to pay for that, or you still have a missed payment. So you are charging things to the account, but you still want to make sure you put that $2 on there so that you are at a zero balance at the time of the due date, where you still have the capabilities of putting more stuff on a card and revolving it like that. Now, that would be the most effective way to have your capital pass through your card while having the same quantity of money work for 2 different things at the same time. Because if you had a $1,000 credit card and your lights, water, gas, car insurance, phone bill are all put on that credit card, then you pay that credit card down. Your entire set of bills for the month is on this credit card, which you can then postpone the payment on that till your next paycheck, right? So if the stuff is due, you don't got your paycheck yet, you want to put your money on your rent, you could charge that stuff to your credit card, pay your rent first, then pay your credit card after you pay your rent, so that you can, what we call, juggle the bills, robbing Peter to pay Paul, to make sure that everybody gets paid and nobody's late, right? But you only put on the credit card in a 30-day period of time what you have to put back on that credit card before the 30 days is up. That would be the best way to manage it with your credit cards. The other question, how do I afford a BMW M4? I heard the Tesla is really electric, and so I don't want to understand. I wouldn't get a BMW M4 or a Tesla. That's a waste of money. Short answer. Michael says, I think he's asking if you're offering a workshop on a course or are you talking about it? Oh, good idea, Michael. Well, I don't offer workshops. So if the guy was asking me if I was, that's good catch, Michael. If the guy was asking me about a workshop, I don't offer workshops. At the end of the day, I get you guys join the membership and then you go into the membership and get all the information that you need so that you can know what to do and how to do it. Because at the end of the day, I'm here to help you guys fix you. I'm not here to try to sell you guys a service. Steven says, I would never have a joint account. That's a bad idea. Joint accounts are only a bad idea if you don't have a responsible person with you. Matter of fact, Steven, if you have a joint account with a girlfriend contract. Guess what happens in the girlfriend contract? The cash in the joint account is domestic property. Any bank accounts that are not included in the girlfriend contract could be off limits for separation. So if you have a joint account and you're dating somebody, if like you guys are going to go half on the bills or whatever, all of the revolving bills that are going to come from that joint account is going to be where you guys put your money at. Not putting 100% of your money into a joint account would be the smart thing to do. So I wouldn't say that I would not have a joint account. I would say that I'm not going to only have a joint account. The joint account would only have what I'm willing to put into that account to share with the other person, and all the rest of my money would be in other accounts that that person doesn't have any access to. Michael says from way back when, dump her, there's 7.9 billion still out there looking for love. Dump her, there is 4.5 billion women. Okay. Because I'm not trying to leave her for a man, but two men get together and be more financially successful because they spend money better. Michael says, good book, Waking Up Dead in America, What Keeps You Poor by Xander and Wilbur. Oh man, we should write that book. SAT scores is not part of tonight's show. He says, Steven says, that book needs to hit the show. It's behind the curtain. I really should be taking a lot of the information that I give you guys and curating it, putting it together, and turning it into some kind of ebook. And eventually, I'm going to be considering how to put that stuff together for you guys, and then putting it up, because like I told you guys before, creating a website, squeeze page, downloadable links, create an ebook, put it up there, and then just tell people where to go to get that book. And that would be a fantastic way to go. And then depending on the price of the book, I could probably put the book up there for like $19.99 or $29.99 for the ebook up there, and they'd be like, oh damn, I can go get this financial book from this podcast, and everything will go. Let's see. Here goes another question. This doesn't even seem I'm scheming it. I'm stuck, and it still doesn't see. He says, "What car would you attain?" I wouldn't. I own all of my cars. You would not obtain a car for an investment. It's always going to be a liability. So here's the thing. Because we're talking about credit cards, not buying cars. Here's the thing. If you want to buy a vehicle that is a liability and potentially a asset for other collateral investments, you would have to buy a vehicle cash up front, so that when depreciated value is still valuable to you, you can leverage the vehicle as collateral towards the deal. But usually, since vehicles are worth seemingly half of what it cost you to get them, a $50,000 vehicle is likely only going to give you $25,000 worth of collateral. A $500,000 vehicle might give you a $250,000 collateral, but you had to spend $500 grand to get it. It would not be an asset. It would be more debt management, because you'd be buying a $500,000 vehicle. You'll be taking out a title loan on that vehicle, which is going to have a higher interest rate than a mortgage on a property, so that you can use that $250,000 to buy a property when you could have clearly just mortgaged the property. But if you get the property and then you were to mortgage the property to pay back off the title loan so that you have a lower interest rate, then at the end of the day, you would be basically robbing Peter to pay Paul. And during the time that the title loan is out, you'll probably be paying almost 15 to 20% interest on the title loan, whereas the 7 to 8% interest on a property loan, which you could have, under those conditions, probably just went and got you a bridge loan from a hard money lender, and that would have made more sense to you, or made more sense to everybody financially. He says, how do you deal with the financial stress of prior authorizations in health insurance with medication? Uh, so here's the thing about it. First and foremost, you ask a financial question when we're talking about credit cards related to health insurance. Um, while that is completely unrelated to tonight's show, so your questions are starting to go left field, and I'm going to stop entertaining questions that are not directly related to today's topic. I just want to point out the fact that I would not see financial stress in any past authorizations with health insurance or medication. If you do not get the right health insurance policy, you are not going to get the coverage for the medication that you need. Your budget, your debt to income budget should have enough room to include a premium insurance policy if you have health care coverage needs that are going to be met by your policy. You may have to have a higher premium to cover this with lower deductibles so that you don't have to pay so much out of pocket for the medication, or you may want to do a copay where you have higher deductibles and lower premiums if you don't need the medication as often. I still would tell you to go and get you a health savings account and then build on the health savings account, deferring a lot of capital gains from taxation so that when you need to take the money from your health savings account and pay towards your health insurance and medication, doesn't matter what prior authorizations are. What matters is that you have taken the money and putting it towards your health now so that you can afford your medical treatment. So if you believe that you're going to need medical treatment and you believe that you're going to need medication, you should be putting money in places where your money will make money for you until you need it. What is the scope of tonight's show? The scope of tonight's show is paying off credit cards, revolving debt, unpaid credit cards, and managing your credit cards effectively to maintain a positive credit score and maintaining a positive payment history so that your credit cards do not compromise your ability to get loans and mortgages and other such things. That's the scope of today's show. It's all about credit cards. All right, so back to it. Now, as you guys roll past that 90-day mark, because when we're dealing with unpaid credit cards for 90 days, I know a lot of people have that situation happening. The third domino is going to fall because your credit report is updated yet again with a third missed payment. So now you got 3 strikes on your credit score, right? This is a catastrophic blow because many credit scoring models see a 90-day delinquency as a major predictor of a default, almost as damaging as a bankruptcy without you even having to file. And it can knock over 100 points off of a high score by itself. And at this point, getting approved for even a new cell phone plan could be very tough, let alone a car loan. Because believe it or not, whenever you try to finance that iPhone 26 for 2026, before they tell you that you can get the phone with just paying the taxes on it and then doing a monthly payment, they run a credit check on you. They make you click this button and this button and this button, and then all of a sudden they run a credit score on you. And if it bounces back that you don't have good credit, they're going to tell you that you don't have enough credit line with your phone company to finance that level of phone. And then they will introduce you to a phone that is inside of your credit line if you even have a credit line with them. Otherwise, they will insist that you pay for it in cash. Will credit cards be a good idea for doing nothing in the 90-day mark, or do I leverage the country? At the 90-day mark of delinquency, it's not a good idea to be at the 90-day mark of delinquency. You should never be at the 30-day mark of delinquency. And you cannot leverage anything with your credit card unless you are, for example, getting a new credit card And that's usually not possible if you're 90 days behind on another credit card. But if you're getting a new credit card for some reason and the credit card allows you to roll over a balance from another credit card with zero down on the startup of the new credit card, you can move money over. And that would be leveraging a new credit card to remove your debt from a high interest credit card. But you would have to pay off the credit card with the zero interest before the promotion time runs out. I exactly want to upgrade my credit card plan to a sufficient optimized level using my SAT skills. You wouldn't use your SAT skills. That is a ridiculous question. But to answer the first half of your question, upgrading your credit card plan requires you to call your credit card company and then ask your credit card company for a credit increase. If you've been in good standings with your credit card company, not having high balances for the last 6 months and on-time payments, they're more likely to give it to you. They're even more likely to give it to you if all of the other credit cards that you have are lower, meaning that they're below 30%, below 10%, even if they're not paid off. But the one you're asking for the credit balance for has like a zero balance or like a $2 balance on it. And you're saying, hey, I've been in good standings for the last 6 months. Can I get a credit increase? There is a limit to the quantity of credit increases that they offer, but you ask every 6 months or once a year for a credit increase by calling the company. Sometimes they'll give it to you automatically, but more often than not, they give it to you upon request if you meet the criteria. Thank you for selling that knowledge. I feel enlightened. Time to go make $13. You're welcome. I appreciate you coming to the show. I don't know why you're going off to make $13. Are you babysitting for an hour? That's it is $1,300. I'd be like, oh, okay, go make that money. But $13, bro? That's a sandwich at McDonald's. But at the 90-day mark, the bank is losing patience. Their own collection efforts have failed. They've hit you with the fees, penalty APRs, serious credit damage, and still no payment. It's becoming inefficient for them to keep chasing you. They are getting ready to take the next big step. You ignored the bank. Now the bank is about to give up on you and hand over your account to someone else entirely. At around 180 days or 6 months in of non-payment, the game changes completely. The bank formally recognizes that they do not expect to get any more money from you at all. This triggers an accounting move called a charge-off. Some charge you off after 90 days, but if they linger for 6 months, you're definitely getting charged off. And this is probably one of the most misunderstood terms in finance. Charge off sounds like the debt is being written off or canceled. That could not be further from the truth. A charge off is just an internal accounting move for the bank. Federal banking regulators generally require them to not carry several delinquent debts or severely delinquent debts as an asset on their books. So they charge it off and move it to their loss column. So let's be clear. A charge off doesn't mean that the debt was forgiven. You still legally owe every single penny that you had before the account charged off. It stops charging you interest, but you still owe. The only thing that changed is that the original bank has declared it a loss on their books and has given up on collecting it themselves. The immediate consequences are severe. Your credit card account is permanently closed, and the charge-off itself is reported to the credit bureaus. This one thing is going to be one of the worst things that can appear on your credit report, because with an impact similar to a foreclosure showing up because of a credit card. Here's going to be the crucial thing about the timeline. This charge-off, along with all 3 other late payments, that's 4 negative hits on your credit card, is going to stay there for 7 years. That 7-year clock starts from the date of the first missed payment that led to everything that happened, all the way to the date of the charge-off. So the negative account lingering for 7 years from the date of the first 30-day missed payment, once that 7 years has passed, that account gets removed off of your credit score. So by the time your account is charged off at 180 days, you're already 6 months into a 7-year sentence. For the next 6.5 years, that charge off is going to follow you. It tells anyone who checks that your credit, you're borrowing money and you don't pay it back, it's not a good idea to lend to you, right? Or it's a higher risk. It can be a huge barrier to getting a mortgage, a car loan, or even renting an apartment, because believe it or not, they check your credit history before they give you a lease. That's why today's show is so important. This is more than just flipping credit cards. This is more than just buying things. You can't even get a place to live if your credit score sucks, right? And this can lead to higher insurance premiums. It could even be an issue for certain jobs, especially jobs in financing, because if you can't manage your money, how can you manage theirs? So you're not going to be able to get certain jobs in bank as like middle or upper management in certain low grade jobs. You might not be able to get a job position in like a bank as a teller or somebody like that, because you have to be financially savvy. They also consider you a high risk, because if you owe a lot of people a lot of money, you're more likely to steal the money from their company to pay off your debts, which means that they're not going to hire you because you are a risk and you have poor financial management skills. So this actually compromises your abilities to maintain a job in finance. So you see all of these opportunities that you're being limited on: getting a new phone, getting a new transportation, getting a new place to stay, getting a new job. All of this stuff is hinged upon your credit score. So what happens to that actual debt? Well, the bank has two main options. They can hire a third-party collection agency to collect the debt for them, or they can do what's more common: sell your debt. They bundle your account with thousands of others and sell it for pennies on the dollar to a debt buyer. Your $2,500 debt might be sold for as little as $50. You are no longer the bank's customer. You are now a line item on a spreadsheet sold to a new company. You're about to enter the world of third-party collections now. After your debt has been charged off and sold, a new phase begins. The calls from your bank will stop for a little while. It might be a little bit quiet. Then a letter arrives from a company that you've never heard of, and they are the new owners of your debt. And their entire business model is collecting on these accounts that they bought for cheap. And these days, they're now hitting you up with automated messages that says, oh, you are involved in a legal action. If you don't respond to this, the legal process will begin without you. Press 1 to acknowledge that you're the person of the legal action. And if it's you, you're going to press 1 because you like, fuck, who's got legal action against me? But you verify your identity before they even talk to you. Now that they're talking to you, they know who they're talking to. They know that they can use this number to contact you. Now they're going to call you about collecting the debt. You've got to remember and notate how long ago this debt existed, because if it is more than 5 years ago, likely the city and state that you're in, they legally cannot collect. You have to stand firm. Never make a promise. Never offer to pay anything to them, because even if it's staying on your credit report for 7 years, if you do not verbally articulate your intent to pay and you do not send them any payments, they cannot restart over the collection timeline by law, because from the day that it got charged off till 3 to 5 years later, that's the window of collection. After that, they can't collect. But if you do anything, if you agree to pay, or if you start paying, start sending the money, at that point, the timeline starts over, and 3 to 5 years after that agreement breaches, they stop collecting. Which means that if you have a debt from 10 years ago, you agree to start paying on that debt now. If you stop paying them, that lingers for 5 more years. But if you recognize that debt is 10 years ago, you can't collect on it. It's not even on my credit report anymore. They can do absolutely nothing about it. But you have to recognize that 10-year-old debt, not my problem. I wasn't paying it 10 years ago. I'm not paying it now. So pay attention to that before we move on. These guys are going to be the new owners of your debt, and their entire business is going to be collecting that debt that they bought for cheap. And this is going to be where things get intimidating, because unlike a bank, these third-party collectors are solely focused on getting paid. So their profit is the difference between the few cents on a dollar that they paid for your debt and what they can convince you to pay them. It's going to be a powerful inconvenience for you, but it's a powerful incentive for them to be persistent about getting that money. Now, their actions are regulated by the Fair Debt Collection Practice Act, FDCPA, and this is going to be the federal laws that protects you from abusive and unfair collection practices. It's virtually important and vital that you know these rights before you have a serious conversation with these individuals. First step is deny, 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 and Fifth Amendment right to remain silent while you're talking to them on the phone. Do your research, call them back, right? Because if in the heat of the moment, if you admit to the willingness to pay, confirm payment, insist or imply or in any way, shape, or form, verbally articulate your intent to pay, they can lock you back into, because those calls are recorded, they can lock you back into something else. In fact, when they call you, the first thing you should tell them is, hold on a moment. All right, now I appreciate your patience. I just wanted to let you know that this call is now being recorded. If you say that, more often than not, they run. You can't record me, blah, 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 blah. So if you want to maintain communication with me today, you're going to have to accept the fact that you're being recorded. I record all my calls with all of my debt collectors. If you want to communicate with me, you must accept the fact that you are going to be recorded. Usually, because the chain of evidence is going to be what gets them sued. Usually, if you notify the debt collector that you're recording them, more often than not, especially when they're not an American call center, they hang up the phone immediately. But some might be a little bit more persistent and be like, all right, fair enough, you're still going to pay this debt, right? But from that moment, like I told you guys earlier, get the name of the company. You don't necessarily need the name of the person. Get the name of the company, get the address of the company of where they expect you to send a payment. If you decided to send a payment, don't tell them that you will, just ask them where it would be. If I had to send you something, what address would I send it to you? Oh, we can collect the payment over the phone. I'm not paying you nothing over the phone, but if I were to decide to send you something, what address would I send it to? They give you the address, right? And I want a mailing address. They're going to give you an address. Well, I want to talk to your supervisor. Well, I'm not talking to you anymore. I want to talk to your supervisor, get this address. You want to work it out to where you get that address. You get the name of the company, you get an address. After that, you notate the date and time that you had this conversation. You ask them to put you on a do not call list. You hang up the phone. Somebody calls you again, you do the same thing. This is going to be how you log your encounters with them, but it also gives you the capabilities of notating who to send your cease and desist letter to. Then you take the cease and desist letter that I'm going to be putting in the membership later today. You send it to them and let them know, don't talk to me no more. You can't collect this debt regardless. You're not even the original debtor. Under whatever federal or state levels, you can't do X, Y, and Z, and that puts a stop to the harassment. It doesn't do anything about it lingering on your credit score, but it just puts a stop to the harassment. Now, under FDCPA debt collectors rules, debt collectors cannot call you before 8 o'clock in the morning or after 9 o'clock at night. Your time, not their time. So if they're in Switzerland and they're calling you, they still got to call you before 9 p.m. calling you at work if they know your employer doesn't allow personal phone calls. They cannot do that. Harass you with threats or profane language. They can't do that. Lie to you, for example, by claiming to be an attorney if they aren't, or threatening to have you arrested, which they can't. You cannot be put in jail in America for not paying a consumer debt like a credit card. In places like Dubai, that might be different, but in America, that's not a thing. Discussing your debt with other individuals, like your neighbors or your coworkers, because when you put alternative numbers in there, because most places ask for either an emergency contact or an alternative number, and every debt collector treats the emergency contact's phone number as an alternative number to reach you. And if they call your best friend, your ex-girlfriend, your husband, your roommate from 5 years ago, and tell them that they're trying to reach you to collect the debt, they're telling someone else that you have a debt. So they're not allowed to do that, which is why they jump on the phone and say that I'm calling for such and such person for an important personal matter. They never tell you what the matter is, right? They just say that they're calling for an important personal matter, and they must talk to the specific person that they're looking for in order to disclose what that personal matter is. And you must admit your identity in order to find out what the matter is, in order for you to reject the matter altogether. You already know that there's only two people that call that way. It's going to be the police and the debt collector. That's the only two people who call you that way, you know. But the difference is that the police will tell you that I'm officer deputy so-and-so from whatever department looking for X, Y, and Z. That's when you know it's a legal issue with the police. If they don't say I'm officer so-and-so or deputy so-and-so from whatever legal department, whoever else is calling is a debt collector. Plain and simple. Now, another thing they can't do, one of your most powerful rights, debt violations is going to be here. Within 5 days after their initial communication with you, the collector must send you a written notice with the debt amount and the name of the original creditor. And this is debt validation. They have to prove to you that this debt exists with the original creditor. If you send them a written request for validation within 30 days, they must stop all collection efforts until they provide proof that you owe the debt and that they have the right to collect it. And this is going to be a crucial step. Sometimes nobody knows this, but in the process of selling the debt, paperwork gets lost. So they might not actually have the documents to prove that the debt is yours. They just have your contact information. You also have the right to tell the debt collector in writing to stop contacting you. And this is often called the cease and desist letter that I've been telling you about. Once they get it, they can only contact you again to say that they are stopping their efforts or to notify you that they are taking a specific legal action, like filing a lawsuit. A cease and desist letter doesn't make the debt go away, but it does stop the calls and the letters. And as we're about to see, the next move could be the lawsuit, because for months or even years, you might be in a standoff with the collection agency, but the debt is still there. And sometimes the debt agency might sell it off to another debt agency, right? It's like a ticking time bomb. Whether that bomb goes off depends on the size of the debt and the collector strategy and a critical legal concept, which is the statute of limitations. The statute of limitations is going to be the state law that sets the deadline for how long a collector has to sue you over a debt. Once that time runs out, the debt becomes time barred. And you need to pay attention to that, because as long as you do not agree to pay for anything else, and as long as you don't send them any new money towards the debt, it stays time barred. But if you at any point in time agree to take on an outstanding debt from 5 or 10 years ago and start making payments on it, in either one of those scenarios, you restart the clock and it's no longer time barred. So they can actually sue you for it now. It doesn't erase the debt if it's time barred. They can still ask you to pay, and you can still tell them no, but it means that they have lost the right to use the court system to force you to pay. If they sue you over time barred debt, you can have the case dismissed. And this is where it's going to get a little bit tricky, because the statute of limitations for credit card debt varies wildly from state to state. It might be as short as 3 years in some states and as long as 10 years in others. The most important question is going to be, when does the standard of limitations clock start? When does it start? In most states, it starts from the date of your last payment or the date of your first missed payment that led to the charge off in the first place. So if your last payment was, say, July of, say, 2020, it would either start on that date or the first missed payment in August of 2020. And then in August of 2026, that account would be effectively 6 years old, right? And this is going to bring us to the single most dangerous trap in this whole process, because in many states, making even a tiny payment on an old debt, or even acknowledging in writing that you owe it, can restart the clock and the statute of limitations. Admitting that you owe that debt. And that's why I told you, like, they called me and they're like, oh yeah, you owe a debt. No, I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing. That's exactly what I kept telling. They called, they swore up and down, you owe it. No, I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing. I don't go, because they were like, oh, you're trying to pay this medical bill for 2013. I'm like, no, I don't know nothing. I don't even know what you're talking about. Matter of fact, the only time I go to a doctor, I have an attorney present. So no, and my attorney will take care of everything. So I don't know nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know nothing. And I don't got nothing. So I'm not giving you nothing today, and I don't plan on giving you nothing in the future. I don't know nothing. That's what I said the whole time. Because if I agree that I could have possibly forgotten to pay something, and agreed that, yeah, I might have left the debt lingering around there, at the end of the day, I'm taking responsibility for the debt, which could start the clock all over again. So imagine that you live in a state with a 4-year standard limitations. It's been 11 years, right? Your standard limitations might be 3 years. The debt is 1 month away from being time barred. A collector calls you and says, look, just send us $25 to show good faith. You send them the $25. You may have just reset the 4-year clock, giving them a fresh 4 years to sue you. That $25 payment could end up costing you thousands of dollars. If the debt is still within the statute of limitations, the collector may decide to file a civil lawsuit. And I told you, I've only seen one person that I know actually get sued for bad debt and then had a judgment that garnished their wages. And I was impressed, because I was like, how the fuck does that happen? I've never gotten got like that. And I'm talking about over $100,000 worth of unpaid debt. I've never gotten got like that. I was like, what happened? But like $70,000 of it is student loans that are permanently deferred. So, that's what happened. But, you'll find yourself in a situation where you then get served with a court summons, usually delivered by a sheriff deputy or a process server. And they're going to serve it to you wherever the hell you are, whether they're going to find where you are. They're going to find at your house, at your job. But they're going to bring it to you in person. This isn't something that they're going to mail certified letter where you got to sign for it and get it. No, they're going to bring it to you. They're going to find where you are, and then they're going to bring it to you. Once you get that piece of paper and they tell the court that you received it, you cannot ignore the summons. And in some cities, in some states, they can easily staple it to your house. They verify that you live there, and they staple it to your house. So you can refuse service, but you know that you were served. And they can tell the court that you know that you were served, but you refuse to accept the service. And now the case has started, right? So this isn't the collection letter. This is a legal order from a court. So if you don't respond or show up, the collector will automatically win the case by default. Then the court will issue default judgments against you. Ignoring the summons is going to be the same as surrendering in the case. It's like admitting guilt. Winning a lawsuit and getting a judgment gives the debt collector incredible power, because they now have the judgment from the creditor that they are armed with by the court, and they can now use that to forcibly take your money and your assets. The judgment amount will be much higher than the original debt. It will include the charged off balance, all of the interest, plus the creditor's court costs and attorney fees. That's a $2,500 debt that can easily turn into a $5,000 judgment. With this judgment, the creditor can use several powerful tools. The first thing can be wage garnishments for those people who work on W-2s and stuff to that effect, where they can contact your job and serve this document where the money comes directly out of your paycheck before you even get a chance to touch it, and it goes towards something else, and your job just puts it as a line item that they paid somebody your money. The creditor serves the judgment to your employer, who then legally is required to take a portion of your paycheck and send it to directly to the creditor. Federal law is going to limit that to about 25% of your disposable earnings. But for most people, losing a quarter of their take-home pay is going to be devastating, especially if you're living at 90% of your income. You take 75% or 25%, you're at 70% income, which is like 15% less than what you need to survive. However, this is not allowed everywhere. Some states like Texas, Pennsylvania, and both North and South Carolina have strong laws that prohibit or severely limit wage garnishments for consumer debts. The second tool is going to be bank account levies. The creditor can serve that same judgment to your bank, which is then legally required to freeze your accounts and hand over your money up to the judgment amount. You can wake up and find that your checking and savings accounts will be completely emptied out if they're in your name, which is one of the reasons why putting your assets into a trust prevents these things from happening, right? These are the things that we talked about trust for, not just divorce, not just hiding your money from your ex. The third is going to be a property lien. A creditor can file the judgment with the county, creating a lien on any real estate that you own. And this doesn't mean that they can take your house, because if you have a homestead, there are laws that prohibit seizure of homesteads in certain cities and certain states. Even in bankruptcy, there are certain assets that are exempt from seizure, right? But it does mean that you can't sell it or refinance the house without paying off the judgment first. The court judgment is going to be a long-term weapon. Depending on the state, a judgment can be valid for 10 years and can often be renewed for another 10 years, meaning that this particular judgment can follow you for 20 years or longer from the date that the judgment occurs, which could have been a debt from 2003 that got renewed in 2026 because you sent them $25, and now they're chasing you down for another 20 years, where in 2046 this is still negatively impacting you. A 2003 debt in 2046 still negatively impacting you because you made one mistake and sent an expired debt a payment. This turns an unsecured promise to pay into a secured debt backed by the full force of the course. And this is going to be the absolute end of the ignore it and it will go away strategy. Right? Now, let's zoom out and take a look at the full 7-year picture. From the credit report's perspective, that clock started ticking on the date of your very first missed payment. For 7 full years, that whole ugly history, that late payment and the charge off, will stay on your credit report. During the 7-year period, you're in a kind of financial purgatory. Getting a new credit card would be extremely difficult, if at all possible, and you're likely only qualified for subprime cards with high fees or terrible rates. A mortgage or a decent car loan will be nearly impossible. Every renting attempt that you're going to make with an apartment is going to be challenging, as landlords are going to check your credits. They're going to be asking for higher deposits. They're going to be more strict about on-time payments. Your insurance rates are going to go up, which means that you could have potentially qualified for like a $50 a month insurance policy, and now you're paying a $150 a month insurance policy because you got bad credit, not because you're a bad driver, right? After 7 years from the original delinquency date, something good finally happens. Under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, most of this negative information is required to be removed from your credit report. Not all of it, most of it. The charge off and the late payments will finally disappear. Your credit score, freed from that anchor, can start to seriously recover. But does this mean that the debt is gone? No. This is a critical distinction. The credit reporting timeline and the debt obligation timeline are two different things. The debt itself doesn't just vanish. If the creditor never sued you and the statute of limitations runs out, the debt is time barred. They can't sue you, but they can still call you and ask you to pay. You can tell them to not call you anymore. They can put you on a do not call list, but when they sell your debt to somebody else 5 years later can call you again and still try to ask you to pay. It doesn't make the debt disappear. It just minimizes or eliminates your obligation to pay it. But if the creditor did sue and did get a judgment, that judgment is legal reality that exists completely outside of your credit report. And as we discussed, that judgment can last for 10 or 20 years. A lot of collectors do not waste the efforts to sue impoverished individuals, because if you have literally no money, if you have literally no assets, there is nothing that they can take, and the cost of the legal process for them is going to be far more than the benefits of the judgment. You can't afford to pay. So it would linger forever, and they would be wasting fees that they would never be able to recoup from the judgment. So usually they choose not to sue. But under the certain circumstances, if it was somebody like Michael who has a bunch of property somewhere, they might actually take that action so that they can collect the debt. If it was somebody that had a bunch of brokerage accounts all over the place, a bunch of CDs and treasury bonds all over the place, you have capital gains somewhere and they can find them. At that point, they might decide to tackle getting some of that money from you, and they would take that action if they're inside of the legal lawsuit limits. But if you are perceivably poor on paper, they usually don't waste their time. Same thing with the IRS and back taxes. Usually when you don't have any money, usually when you don't have any property, usually when you don't have any assets, it costs the federal government way more money to come after you for failing to file taxes, because you don't have any money. What are they going to get for you? They're going to waste effort to notify you so that you can tell them, I don't have it. And with nothing to take besides the clothes on your back, there's nothing to take. Now, if you have a bunch of properties, if you have a bunch of cars, if you have a bunch of money in banking accounts and brokerage accounts and all of this other stuff, then they can effectively take from you because you have assets. That's when they come and get you. That's when they take you to court. That's when they make a big scene. Got to think about that. A collector could garnish your wages long after the charge off has vanished from your credit report. You got to understand that. So the 7-year rule is about credit reporting, not debt forgiveness. Ignoring a bill for 7 years doesn't wipe the slate clean from your obligation to the debt. It just wipes the slate clean for the reporting of that debt. Now, We just spent the last couple of hours walking through the financial nightmare of things. But what if I told you guys that the smartest way, like I was explaining earlier today, to handle credit cards is to never pay the bill itself? I know that might sound a little bit crazy, but here's a secret. You don't pay the bill because you're already paying off the spending before the bank even gets a chance to turn the balance into a bill, into high interest debt. If you use your credit cards, but you refuse the debt model, you're in a better position. The hook is never pay the credit card bill, you pay the credit card spending instead, right? So let me explain how this works. The traditional pattern is to spend all month, wait for a statement, that's the bill, and then decide what to pay. The bill is the actual track, loaded with the interest and the minimum payment suggestions designed to keep you in debt. The ultimate strategy is to flip that model. You track what you spend, and then you pay it down or you pay it off before the statement even generated. The bill that arrives shows either a zero or near zero balance. You're not paying their bill, you are clearing your own ledger. Here's why that's going to be very powerful. First, you minimize or eliminate the interest. Credit card interest is usually calculated on the average daily balance. So when you make payments during the billing cycle, you shrink the balance and you cut down the number of days that balance sits there occurring interest. If you pay it to zero before the statement closes, you stay in the grace period and the interest charge is effectively zero. When you pay early, you're shrinking the principal and cutting the time. It's how you starve the bank's interest machine. Second, you build a much stronger credit score. Issuers typically report your balance to the bureaus when the statement closes. If you spend $2,000 but you pay it off before the date, the balance that they report is much lower or even zero. Now, I'm going to tell you as a side note, a $0 report is not as good as a $1 or $2 report, because a $1 or $2 report showing in good standing and payments on time shows payment history for the credit card. A $0 report could be misrepresented as a non-active account. While it is still better than having a $2,000 balance on a $2,000 card, a $0 balance is not as good as a $1 or $2 balance. Okay? So this will give you rock bottom credit utilization ratios, which is a massive factor in your credit score. Credit bureaus don't see your day-to-day swipes. They see the monthly photo. Paying early means that you pose for the photo after you've straightened up the room. Third, you completely avoid the late fees and the penalty APRs. It's impossible to be late when you've already paid off the bill before the bill got there. You're not a hostage to their calendar. You're ahead of it. This also creates a built-in buffer for when life happens, because if a payment transfer fails or an emergency pops up, you're not on the edge of a cliff because you've already handled the obligation for that cycle. Fourth, you sidestep the bank's psychology trap. The minimum payment on the bill is a behavioral nudge to keep you in debt for as long as possible. Paying the minimum payment is the amount of money where they can get their interest for the month and you put a little bit on the principal. When you're paying in real time based on your spending, you're anchored to reality, what you actually owe, not their manipulative suggestion. The bill is their suggestion. Your ledger is the truth. You pay off the truth before they send you a suggestion. Fifth, you build better budgeting discipline, because paying multiple times during the month forces you to confront your spending in real time, creating a continuous feedback loop that can curb overspending. When you pay early, your card stops being a temptation device and becomes just a smart payment tool. It also becomes a buffer between transactions online and your direct bank account. This could alleviate any unorthodox transactions that you did not approve on your direct bank account. For those individuals that only have one account, your direct deposit goes into your bank account. Your money comes out of your bank account, goes onto your credit cards. Your credit cards make purchases. If there's a dispute on your credit card, it doesn't interfere with your rent being paid because your rent's being paid from your bank account. True to life, I would have a separate account for the rent where money comes into the checking account, gets redirected to a separate account so that when the rent needs to be paid, it's unaffected by any other transactions that are occurring. I actually experienced just last month. There was a bank that changed their policies, and they went from having free accounts to charging $5 a month for the services on the account. I don't want to pay for the services on the account. So what do? Move everything to another account. There's multiple accounts open. If you don't have a no service fees for your accounts, I have plenty of other accounts that have no service fee. You're charging me 50 cents a transaction for wire transfers. I have plenty of accounts that have no service fee for wire transfers. If you're not going to give me a better service, I can drop your service and go to somebody else that I'm already doing business with. This is why I tell you guys that you should have one credit union and one bank account in all 50 states for multiple reasons. One is because you can spread your money across a bunch of different accounts, which protects your assets from catastrophic failure because they can only tackle one account at a time because they're not all linked together. Two, you have options. If one bank you no longer do business with, you still have other banks to do business with. You don't have to rush down the street and open a new bank account because your old bank sucks. You literally have all of these accounts just lingering open that have no fees on them for having. Three, because banks are going to be regional. Southeast America is not going to always have a bank in Northeast America. East Coast banks are not always accessible on the West side. West side banks are not always accessible in Central America. Northern banks are not always accessible in the South. Therefore, while some banks have partner companies where you can utilize their ATM machines, they don't always have a branch in your city, in your state, where you can walk in there and talk to a teller about what's going on with your account. But if you have at least one credit union and one bank account in every state, that's 50 states, that's 100 accounts. I know that's a lot to juggle, but if you are going from, say, Florida to, say, California, you can wire transfer money from your Florida bank to your California bank. Now you can start doing transactions in California, and if you need to go to the branch and talk to the branch manager, you're going to your bank. If you decide to go from California to Maine, now you're sending your money from Florida to Maine, or from Georgia to Wisconsin, or from North Dakota to Louisiana, and you can use the bank that's there. When we start talking about international travel, you get a bank account that's not just nationwide, but international, like Chase, right? While it might be inconvenient to get to the limited number of banks that might be in that country, if you have a Chase Bank in America and you go to the Philippines and they have a Chase Bank in Cebu, you can go to Chase and get the money straight out of the bank instead of having to put it in a briefcase and risk getting robbed by the feds at the airport, because they'll rob you. They'll rob you at gunpoint. The United States government is not as positive as people are willing to admit, right? I was actually in a debate with some people all week about a police officer that got maced, and I said self-defense, and they're like, "Oh no, that's a crime." No, it's not a crime. Macing a police officer is not a crime. It is resisting arrest is a crime. Macing a police officer is self-defense. If he is approaching you and this is an unwilling engagement, and you have asked him to leave you alone and stay away from you, he has not officially articulated verbally that you're being detained or under investigation or under arrest. That unwanted engagement in public can be perceived as an attack on your person, which you can defend with mace. You're not using the limits of self-defense with pepper spray and stun guns. You have more freedom from the pepper spray than you do from the stun gun, but the lethal force of a firearm would not be justifiable. If you shot a police officer in self-defense, they have to be shooting at you first. But if you pepper sprayed a police officer that is forcibly advancing on your position without justifiable cause articulated, and you pepper spray them, it could be perceived as self-defense. So many people are debating me right now on TikTok. So many people are debating me in this conversation, and I'm like, wait, listen to the narrative. The charge was dropped. It was dismissed. You cannot get on video a person macing a police officer and case dismissed without having grounds for self-defense. Because assault on a police officer is a felony. The person was being charged for theft, I think $60,000 worth of theft, which is also a felony. They're not going to reduce a violent crime for a monetary crime and say, oh, we're going to throw out your charge with the police that we got on video so that we can get your confession for the $60,000 worth of property you stole. No, you got caught stealing with the property. So you're caught on video stealing the property. You're caught on video macing the police. They dropped that charge with the police because reasonably the discussion that the police officer had with the person before the person pepper sprayed him leaded the people to believe that the person that provided the pepper spray felt that their safety was compromised by the presence of the police officer, where the police officer was not effectively articulating that the person that they were engaging was under investigation for anything. Everybody's mad at me, but I'm like, look, self-defense is self-defense. You don't have to like the consequences, but just because the police officers are people in uniform, and just because they're in uniform, they can be there for a legitimate reason. If they're not doing it right, they qualify to get got like everybody else. If I walked up to interview somebody for this podcast, but I didn't articulate that well enough before I got close enough to get pepper sprayed, I could get pepper sprayed when I was innocently, from my perspective, just going to ask them a question. But from their perspective, I am closing the gap between them and me, and they don't want me to close that gap, and they pepper spray. Now, First Amendment auditors do this on a regular basis. When you start thinking about true self-defense and you eliminate the observation of entitlement, got what he was asking for. He should have said, stop, I'm detaining you, you're under arrest, you're under investigation. Not, hey, slow down, let me talk to you for a minute. No, I don't want to talk to you. Stop, you're being detained, you're under investigation. That's what you've got to tell them. Otherwise, you're going to get pepper sprayed in a Walmart parking lot. Back to the main scenario, back to the main discussion here. The final thing we need to think about here is that every dollar that you don't pay a 25% APR interest on is a dollar that you can invest, save, or use to build generational wealth, which is why I encourage you guys to pay down your debts faster. So you're either compounding money for the bank or you're compounding money for yourself. This strategy is going to ensure that you're compounding money for yourself when you're utilizing credit cards. Now, quick note. Don't drain your emergency fund just to hit a zero balance on your bank account. Liquidity is key. This is what I was telling Steven before. You don't need to pay down all of your debts before you start investing into things. But you do need to prioritize revolving your balances to a lower level so that you are not dealing with all of the extra interest after the bill is due, right? The goal isn't to have a perfect zero every month, but to use the card as a pass-through tool, not a loan. Because a loan is when you take the money out and then you just make payments. A pass-through tool is when you're just using an extra quantity of money that you don't currently have on your person, and then when you get that money, you put it back on the credit card to bring the balance back down. By paying off what you spent on your own schedule, not when they tell you to pay it. You are effectively utilizing these balances in your favor more effectively. Now that the idea of never pay a bill strategy is going to seem like it makes a lot more sense. But what if you're already on the nightmare timeline that we described earlier? What if you're already 60 days late and the calls have started? The key takeaway is that ignoring the problem is a guaranteed path for failure. The system is automated, persistent, and heavily weighted in the creditor's favor. So what do you think the smarter path is from here? Well, first thing you want to do is you want to call your creditor if you're already in a situation where finances suck. Call them right now. The second that you know that you're going to have trouble paying a bill, you don't have to wait until the bill is due. You can call them before the payment date arrives, right? Explaining the situation to your creditor, just like when a shutdown happened and you're not going to have enough money to cover this month's bills. Many issuers have hardship programs that they might offer you, which allows a temporary break on your payments. They might suspend your payments for 1 or 2 months while you get your finances together. Lower interest rates or a different type of payment plan. This is your best and most effective option that only exists until you miss the first payment without pre-notification. Option 2 would be contacting a nonprofit credit counselor, because if you're feeling overwhelmed, contacting a reputable nonprofit credit counseling agency can help you create a budget and maybe be able to enroll you in a debt management plan. With debt management plans, you make one monthly payment to the agency and they distribute the money to all of your creditors, often after negotiating a lower interest rate for you, which usually comes from them charging off all of your accounts so that the interest does not continue to accrue. Option 3 would be credit debt settlements. Steven says, if I owe money, I'm chasing down who I owe. Today's show taught me to keep doing what I'm doing. Yeah, if you owe money to somebody, you want to make sure that you pay back who you owe. But a lot of the times what we do in a social setting is that when we owe people money, we kind of just let it ride. Like we'll borrow money from them, we'll take care of the bill. And then some people actually forget that you owe them money. Like take, for example, remember I told you guys last month that my homeboy's license got suspended and I paid for his suspension? His birthday was July. Just chalk it up as a birthday present, right? I covered it for him, for me, because his name was on my title. But I covered it for him, and all I got was a thank you. Did he ever turn back around and slide the $150 back? No. Why? He doesn't have it. I ain't mad at him. He doesn't have it. So in these situations, a lot of the times when we borrow money from our friends and family members, we don't borrow it. We're asking for like a grant or a subsidy where they're going to cover our expense on our behalf with no intent of paying it back. Now, if in the event I needed $150, I might could tap him on the shoulder and be like, hey, let me get like 75. Because I covered his 150 debt, he's going to be obligated to say yes to some of it. I don't got it today, but let me see what I can do, right? Because I covered him when I wasn't supposed to, right? But when it comes down to creditors, debt collectors, they don't give a shit how many times you've paid. They don't give a shit how early you pay. All they care about is that you still owe them money now and you have not paid. So you have to work with them on how to get them paid at a level that they are satisfied. And if all else fails, that's where our current option comes in. Because if your account isn't charged off, you want to get it charged off, because you can charge it off by calling them up and saying, hey, look, this is just too much for me. I can't afford to pay this. There's nothing I can do with this debt right now. close this account. Now that your account is closed off with the creditor, you can negotiate a debt settlement, because the collector, whether you do it with the original debt or if you do it with a debt collector, you work on a settlement. But if you're doing it with the debt collector that bought your debt for little or nothing, they're going to be willing to offer you a lump sum payment that is significantly less than the full amount that you owe, where seemingly a lot of the times, let's say you have like a $250 credit card that some kind of way ended up at $2,500. You charge it off with the bank. The bank sells it to a creditor. You talk to the creditor. The creditor tells you, well, if you give me the 250 bucks, they bought it for 50 cents. Well, if you pay me the 250 bucks or the $300, then we'll charge off your account. You'll be good to go. I no longer have to pay all of that interest to the original debtor because I paid with the debt collector to take care of it for significantly less. Usually, the creditor will offer you roughly about 60% less than what the original debtor wanted. Right? So if it was a $2,500 line of credit, they likely would be saying, well, you know, if you give me like 800 bucks, we'll work it out. Right? So you don't got to give them the whole 2,500. You give me 800 bucks, we'll work it out. Right? And you don't got to get it all to me today. You can just agree to put it on a payment plan and just start paying me the $50 a month today for the 800 bucks, and we can get it paid off. Or $25 a month today. If you think you could pay $30, just do like $30 a month today for the 800 with no interest on it, instead of the $250 a month that we were trying to pay for the 2,500 that was all going to interest, right? So if you owe way more than what you got coming in, you could just say, you know what, charge it off. I'll negotiate to somebody. This will stop the collection calls and it will prevent the lawsuit. On your credit report, the account will be marked as settled for less than the full amount, which is a negative, but much better than an unpaid charge-off or a court judgment. Option 4 is going to be the last resort, bankruptcy. If your debts are truly overwhelming with no realistic way to pay them off, bankruptcy might be the most reasonable option. It's the legal process that is designed to give you a fresh start, while it severely damages your credit for many, many, many years, because like it's going to be on your credit report for like 7 to 10 years. It provides immediate protection from creditors, and it offers a final legal resolution. It's the final financial nuclear option, but sometimes it's the only way to end the war and start rebuilding, because with bankruptcy, you might be able to protect your house, you might be able to protect your car, and be able to pay off the people that you owe. That prevents your house from going into foreclosure. That prevents your car from being repoed. If it was repoed, it could get returned to you. All of these things happen when you're in this type of situation where you put a hold on everything, right? So if this timeline was an eye-opener and you guys want to learn more about how to make financial systems work for you, not against you, if you haven't done so already, make sure that you hit that subscribe button on both the TikTok channel and the YouTube channel. Mash those reaction buttons, hit the notification button, and hit that like button for both of these channels. And if you're on TikTok, swing over to the YouTube side of things and go and take a look at the membership, because all of the details and information that is in the membership that will help you guys thrive is the stuff that not a lot of people are paying attention to these days. And I strongly encourage you guys to go and take a look at these things, because this is the stuff that makes or breaks a channel, a person's success, financial success. If you didn't know, now you know, and knowing is half the battle, right? We're going to be putting together shows like this every single day, breaking down complex money topics and clearing up and making things make sense, breaking all of the myths and legends behind the things that we usually ignore, but we fear it, we have concerns, we have questions for, but we don't know who to ask, and we don't have the confidence to talk about these topics to the people that we know. And I'm going to be honest, I asked you guys before, because I also give you guys actionable information that you guys can utilize to move forward. But I asked you guys before, how many people in your network do you have forward-thinking conversations with? Stephen said today that I provided so much information on this topic that reinforces some of the things that he's doing. But how many of your friends would you have this conversation with? Then on top of that, how many people in your friend group even have any of this knowledge? The majority of us do not look for another way. We don't pay attention to anything outside of the tunnel vision of the direction that we're going right now, where we are reactionary to life, and we fail to not only plan for the worst, but also plan for the best. We have a game plan on how to stay afloat, how to survive, but we fail ourselves with creating a plan of action for how to thrive. What happens if all of the money comes in on time? What happens if more money comes in? Not just what happens if not enough money comes in. Not just what happens if all else fails. Our plan A is if nothing changes. Our plan B is if things get worse. Our plan C should be if things get better. Because if you're in a financial spiral, what happens when you come out of that spiral? Are you going to go back into it with the bad spending habits that led to it the first time? Or are you going to have more savvy spending skills after you come out of the financial pitfall? Everybody at some point in their life hits a perceivable financial rock bottom. After that, you come out of that rock bottom, which is why we're looking at a 7-year rollover. 14 years later, you will be looking at the bad financial decisions you were making in your 20s and now thinking in your 40s and 50s, oh, I'm not going to make those types of mistakes. You would tell your kids that are 18 and 19 and 22 not to do these things, and they're going to look at you like, what's the consequences? You can't even pull up your credit report and show them the consequences because they no longer exist. You have to understand that learning from your mistakes and mistakes from others, you have to build a better resolve. You have to build a better outcome. Now, if you guys are struggling with debt, please know that you're not alone and you have a lot of options. There are effectively about 90% or 85% of Americans that are struggling with debt, not using debt as an asset. So you don't have to go down the path that we described. I put a lot of information into the membership that gives you guys a lot of information that you need, potentially some stuff about credit counselors, resources, and other such things in that listing in the membership that you guys could. Why do they do that? I'm sitting over here drinking coffee and it's like, consuming substances featured in a live could harm your health. Coffee is not going to harm your health. They do that every time I go three hours into the show. And I'm sitting over here drinking coffee and it's like, consuming substances can harm your health. Oh, Lord. Either way, the journey from a single month payment to a wage garnishment is a predictable domino effect. It's a cascade of consequences that gets more severe and more expensive at every stage. Ignoring a credit card bill isn't a valuable strategy. It's a voluntary ticket to a years-long financial headache and legal chase that you are almost certainly going to lose. The bank systems aren't emotional. They are programmed to follow a set rule for designation to protect their bottom line, not your financial well-being. But you're not powerless. On one hand, you can adopt an ultimate strategy, use your cards as a tool, not a loan, by paying off your spending before it ever becomes interest-bearing debt, and that's going to be how you're going to win the game before it even starts. On the other hand, if you're already in trouble, you can take control, understand your timeline, know your rights, and then being aware of the laws in your state, using that as your first step, you're able to start mitigating your circumstances. The most important lesson is proactive communication. That is always better than silent avoidance. Whether it's paying early, calling the bank, meeting a credit counselor, taking action is going to be what separates people who recover from those who get crushed by the system. I don't want you guys to be a victim of the timeline. I want you to be an architect of your own financial recovery. Now, we've covered a lot of information today. I want you guys to remember, for those of you that are watching us on TikTok, that we're going to be live every night of the week, usually around 11:30, 11:45 Eastern Standard Time. So I want to make sure that you guys come back. I'm going to start by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I give you this information to make you guys higher value men, not just by improving your financial life, but also by improving your personal decision-making skills. And then recognizing that, ladies, this being a male-driven podcast from a male's perspective, you as well as men can utilize this information better to improve yourselves by, first and foremost, finding the things inside of your life that's inside of your control and proactively improving them. Then navigating around the things that are outside of your control. Okay? After you've done that, you're able to focus on your 20 and 30-year plan. And by focusing on your 20 and 30-year plan, you're capable of effectively reverse engineering that to what you're going to do today. And then focus on that going forward into the future. Now, ladies, y'all can keep your eyes open for the men with the potential personality and characteristics, the drive, ambition, dedication, motivation, admiration, and integrity to fulfill his goals, and see how his goals mesh well with your goals. But y'all don't have to have the exact same goals. They can just be headed in the same direction. Long-term satisfaction goals you guys can conquer together over short-term gratification goals. And I tell you guys on a regular basis that two people can make it to $1 million faster than one. It just requires you guys to focus on the future, not the present. The fear of missing out has to be taken out of your itinerary, and keeping up with the Joneses and wanting to keep stay in the in crowd. You guys got to get that out of your mind, because when you're no longer doing that, you find yourself 20, 30, 50, 70 years later, you're retired, and the stuff that you used to value so much when you were younger are no longer important to you when you're older. You need to start preparing for your future today. Now, special shout out to Steven, Michael, OG Kicks, FX Trader, Aztec, Unc Andy. I think I got everybody that come in on a regular basis. Oh, and Joe Jack. Always got to get Joe Jack likes. I appreciate my members for coming to the show. I want to thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night. And then for those of you guys
higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.